My shock is that he was murdered, and no one has given us the complete truth, or anyone has been held accountable. And it's been 7 months.
There was more effort in vilifying him than pursuing justice.
A kid who is out observing something that should not be happening in this world today, in the United States. Why? What did he do to deserve to be murdered? To left cold, on the ground, dead? My child. What did he do?
Former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem accused Preddy of committing an act of domestic terrorism. The Justice Department then opened a civil rights investigation shortly after the killing, working with the FBI and DHS. Attorney General Todd Blanche said Preddy's actions did not meet the legal definition of domestic terrorism. The Hennepin County medical examiner ruled Preddy's death a homicide. 2 officers were charged for use of force, but they have not been charged for the killing. And again, with the feds sweeping up the investigation, the state is doing their best. We've been in touch with Hennepin County. Hopefully we'll hear more from them. But so many things wrong here, especially after the killing of Renee Good that happened just weeks earlier. But I'm just focusing right now on the depravity of Joe leaving this family hanging.
Yeah, every day, leaving the family hanging. Every day, a mother's child, as she said, gunned down in the streets of America. Gunned down execution style, as she said, quote, murdered. There are a lot of people in Minneapolis, a lot of people across America, a lot of people across the world who saw what happened on that videotape and believe he was murdered, believe he was shot for no reason, execution style. And Alex Preddy's mom asks, what did my son do? What did he do? Well, Willie, what he was doing what we would want our children to do. He was trying to help a woman up, pick a woman up who had been knocked down by these thugs, these untrained thugs, knocked down in the snow. And he went away from the police officers toward the woman to pick her up after she had been brutally knocked down in the snow. And for that, he's pulled back out and he is shot in what looks like execution style in America, in the streets of America, and still no justice for those who shot him, who the mother said murdered him, who a lot of us look and say looks like got shot execution style for helping a woman out of the snow. Why are these men that shot him execution style not in prison today?
Yeah, these masked men, they're masked for a reason so that they can't be identified. And in a case like this, they're being protected by the federal government. They're being protected by the Trump administration. The FBI finally did share information with Hennepin County. Keith Ellison, the Attorney General in Minnesota, says that's a good development. At least we're beginning to get the evidence we need to pursue this case. But as Ms. Preddy said in those heartbreaking words, it's been 7 months, and they're not getting any comfort from the government when their son was shot in the head in the streets by a federal agent. They're not getting any information from the government after that happened. And I'm glad you pointed out the full video. We've all seen it. ICE can't run from this. We saw what he did. He raced like we would hope our sons would do, Joe, to step into a woman who was being pushed down and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You don't push somebody down like that. And for that, he was on his knees and shot in the head. And after that, He was called a domestic terrorist without evidence. The Attorney General now, Todd Blanche, has backed off that, saying there's no evidence he was a domestic terrorist. But just think, the first reflex to watching a man shot in the head by federal agents in a video the whole world saw is to say it was his fault. He was a domestic terrorist, which he clearly was not.
You know, Willie, this is what happened in Jim Crow South when a black man would be shot. Like in another lifetime, justice would not be served. You know, we saw this happen to civil rights workers. We saw this happen to black men. We saw this happen time and again, where somebody would be shot dead and no justice would follow, or a jury would acquit. That's now happening in 2026. That's now happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because the Trump administration is trying to protect people that gunned down an American citizen in the streets of America. Willie, this is a perverse throwback to an uglier, horrible time in this country where certain people can be gunned down and shot, killed, and no justice follows. Justice has to follow here, Willie, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the difference is back then they could do those things under the cover of darkness. Today we have video. We watched Renee Good get shot in the face. We watched Alex Preddy get shot in the head. And Jonathan Lemire, there's got to be justice for Alex Preddy, as his family is now publicly asking. But as you've been reporting, there is an ongoing and maybe enhanced push for ICE to be more aggressive, to get the numbers up, to meet the quotas, to get people out of this country. Hopefully not to the point where they're shooting peaceful protesters in the head. But this has maybe restrained ICE to some degree for a while, but it's clear that the mission continues.
Yeah, it's such a heartbreaking interview with Preddy's parents here yesterday. They said they learned of his death by the TV footage, by the news coverage, and certainly though the cameras that delivered that heartbreaking news to them though have played a role here in not allowing DHS to continue with these lies as they did, rightly so you say, about Renee Good as well, and that is the most Orwellian and frankly horrifying part of this in some ways, is that the way that this administration tried to lie despite the evidence that we could all see. But you are right. As I've been reporting for weeks now, these quotas still exist. These daily phone calls from Stephen Miller to DHS officials are still happening. Yes, there have been fewer confrontations like this, but we've also had people shot in Texas and in Houston and in Maine and Caddy. This is something where this administration, first of all, they're almost never able to admit a mistake. We have seen that from the president on down. There's an imperiousness that they feel like they are right, despite what your lying eyes may tell you. But we also see a stubbornness that they feel like this is their best political move, despite what the polls say. And in fact, Caddy, we know that the new head of DHS, who succeeded Kristi Noem, Mark Wade Mullen, is under a lot of pressure right now from the right, who think that he's gone too soft on deportations and needs to ramp those up ahead of the midterms.
Yeah, and we saw him being overruled by the president on traffic stops. But you're right to mention Stephen Miller. This is Stephen Miller's policy. Yeah, the buck stops with President Trump, but this is Stephen Miller's policy. This is what he wants. He wants the deportation numbers stepped up every day. And it's his policy, which is the reason that you've had killings in Minneapolis, killings in Houston, killings in Texas, killings in Maine as well. And it's because he has these deportation quotas, because he's so fixated on them. I had a dinner the other night here in London with a group of foreign journalists, and I was asking them, what's the most shocking thing that's happened in America in the last year and a half of the Trump administration? Some said Greenland, one said Iran, but about 3 or 4 of them said Minneapolis and the killing of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. They knew the names. This story has traveled right around the world, and it's part of the reason that people are looking here in Europe back at America and saying, is this the country recognized? Is this the country we can be an ally with? Because there seems to be this lawlessness and a breakdown of the rule of law. And Alex Preddy's mum is right. What did he do to deserve this? Under American law, nothing.
He did what every parent would want their son to do. He tried to help a woman who had been knocked down by agents into the snow for no reason and tried to help pull her up. And for that, he ended up dead in the streets of America. I will say the Trump administration knows better. They should know better. If they are completely immoral on such matters, they know politically that this is a losing hand. They know that. And Mika, if you combine what's happened with tariffs, you look at the states right now that are going to be harmed by tariffs. They're states like Maine, states like Michigan, states like Alaska. I mean, you look at the states that are going to be most harmed by this. There's states where there are important Senate elections coming up. And then you add on top of that the horror being visited upon these states. Maine, gunning down in the street of a young father who was loved by all. The gunning down of a father and grandfather in Texas, where another very competitive race is being run. And Republicans have just completely lost Hispanic support that they had just 2 years ago. These policies are not only deeply immoral and un-American, they're just bad politics. And I know the White House political team understands it, and yet it continues. What Americans believe are murders in Minneapolis, what Americans believe are murders in Texas, what Americans believe are murders in Maine of American citizens and of Hispanic men. It is so immoral, it is so un-American, and it is so politically toxic that you would think even the most radical elements of this administration would understand, but they don't.